90.3 FM, WHPC. Whoops.
I can't hear you.
90.3 FM, WHPC. From the Pressbox, 516-572-7440. We're talking sports as we do every Monday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We're also streaming at ncc.edu/WHPC, also at tunein.com. Search WHPC. And
we're listed now.
We're listed now. Yeah.
We're on the list. We're important now.
Yeah. So we talked about Derrick Rose. Quickly, let's talk about the NBA draft. The Knicks got, who did they get to?
They got nobody.
And the Nets.
Thank you, Andrea Bargnani, and your terrible trade and your 1 year of pathetic service with the Knicks that cost them a first-round draft pick. Yay!
Well, how many more draft picks can they pick? That's the question.
How about getting some talent on the team?
Well,
that's how you do it. You get draft picks, like Porzingis.
Okay.
Porzingis, is Porzingis not talented?
We love him.
Is he not the future of the club?
We think so.
Well,
now the Nets, they actually got the 20th pick. They traded Thaddeus Young.
That is correct.
To the Pacers, and they selected Karis LeVert.
Yes.
Out of Michigan.
Bit of a risk, but
why is he a risk?
Well, he's had foot issues for the last couple of years, and well, yeah, but you know, he's an elite athlete, and I'm a former elite athlete, so
yeah.
But it's not a terrible move. I mean, a lot of NBA observers, let's call them, had LeVert slipping down to the second round because he wasn't able to work out at the pre-draft camps because of the injury.
Right.
He had surgery on his foot actually, on his left metatarsal. But he's a guy who was regarded to have lottery talent, but again, injuries. And the Nets are essentially banking on the fact that this kid can overcome his injury issues, and maybe they get a steal at 20. And you know, I mean, they gave up Thaddeus Young. The Nets are going to be terrible with or without him, so you might as well try to get something bring something in or somebody in for him, and make that spot on your roster younger, so that you're starting to build for the future. The problem the Nets have is, again, this trade that they made a few years ago for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett in their failed bid to contend for a championship is haunting them, because the Celtics can trade first-round picks with the Nets next season. Now, that's almost pretty much a lock to happen, because the Celtics are expected to be probably at least a 50-win team next year, if not a little better.
Okay.
And the Nets will be a 20-win team because they're awful. Their roster is terrible. They have the only player of note that they have left on their roster now is Brook Lopez, and it wouldn't surprise me if he gets traded in the next few months. Hopefully for at least a couple of draft picks. I think the Celtics would actually be a good trading partner for the Nets, because they could use a big man, and they have an abundance of draft picks.
Right.
You know, it would be great if the Nets could get their own pick back.
Eight picks left?
Something in the next couple of drafts. The Celtics have they have so many picks that they took.
I meant this year. Didn't they have 8
No,
picks?
they had 3 in the first round.
Right.
And 2 of them they used on European players in what they call a draft and stash, because they can pick those players and just leave them off their roster, and so they don't have to take up a roster spot. Now, one of those players who they drafted, I'll be honest, I don't even remember his name. I remember he's French, and he's 6'8" and weighs 270 pounds. All right, I don't know about you, that sounds like a wasted pick to me. But the Celtics wound up taking at number 3. They went with Jaylen Brown of Cal, who was a bit of an enigma. It was actually kind of a surprising pick there, because he certainly wasn't the best player on the board. I mean, obviously, as my secret idol Hubie Brown would say, his kid's got a lot of upside, because he says that about pretty much everybody.
Okay.
But it was a curious pick because of some of the other players on the board and some of the needs that the Celtics have. And Brown is known as a slashing player and a guy who can get to the basket, but you know, why not go with maybe a Chris Dunn, or if they want to take a reach, they'd go for that Dragan Bender kid out of Israel, who a lot of people kind of see as a Porzingis light, so to speak. But it was a puzzling pick. you know, Ben Simmons went to the Sixers with the first pick. Brandon Ingram to the Lakers with the second pick. Those were both expected. And then after that, with the Celtics pick, that was kind of, all right, this is where, how is the rest of the draft going to work and how's it going to go? And the Celtics were that linchpin to say, this is how things are going to shake out. And, most of the rest of the next 6 picks, it was the players who were chosen were the players who were expected to be chosen.
Right.
But maybe not necessarily in the order that people thought they might be chosen, because then it got to 9, and then the draft just went insane.
Well, that's what happened.
So, but, the Nets, like I said, LeVert it's a risk, but you take the risk. When your team is expected to be bad, you have to be able to try to acquire talent where you might not necessarily know you're going to find it. Right. You have to take risks because, like I said, they're going to be bad anyway. So
the beautiful thing about the Nets being really bad this year, and probably the next couple of years, is that they're not moving. They're going to be stuck in Brooklyn playing in front of 10,000 fans,
more or less.
And of course, the Long Island Nets are going to be at the Coliseum. People will be interested in them instead.
The D League.
Yeah, D League.
Yeah.
So anyway, the draft's been pretty. Actually, I didn't think the draft was a big deal this year. Maybe because the Knicks weren't even involved.
Well, yeah,
and it wasn't in New York, right? Was it?
It was actually in Brooklyn.
It was in Brooklyn.
Yeah, but the reason it wasn't a big deal was because there wasn't, besides Simmons and Ingram, who both only played a year of college ball, so fans don't really get to know when they do the one and done. It's like most of the kids, they don't. There's no like hype or expectations. Everybody who follows basketball anyway knows who Ben Simmons is, and he's been projected as the #1 pick even before he got to college. Ingram has come on. He's still a very skinny guy. He needs to gain weight, but he's an electrifying athlete, and he's 6'9", which I didn't even think he was that tall when we were talking about him last week.
Right.
But he can do a lot of things, and he's got one of those bodies. He's almost like a contortionist, where he can kind of slash his way to the lane. Plus, he has a good shot. So the Lakers got a bona fide star quality player. I still wish they would have traded for Carmelo to get that star, but that's in the past now. But after that, like I said, there were good players and solid players, but there was a significant drop off after that. And then you had this the kid Thon Maker, who was an African native, 7'2", skinny kid, and then there was rumors at the draft that he was actually 3 years older than he says he is, and he was a reach for Milwaukee at number 10. It's like, I don't know what was going on, but there weren't players to really get excited about. There wasn't, like LeBron James got drafted, boom, it's LeBron James. And usually when, each year in the draft, there is more than just 2 players who you can say, all right, that guy's going to be a star,
and
we're really excited.
The guys did 1 year and done, because they sort of know this.
Oh, sure. I mean, Ben Simmons, people, even like I said, the only reason Ben Simmons went to college is because now the NBA requires players to go to college for a year before they're eligible to be drafted. They can't go straight out of high school to the NBA. So that's why Ben Simmons. Otherwise, Ben Simmons would have been the #1 pick last year.
Someone's going to challenge that eventually.
Well, I don't know. That's the NBA's rule. That was a David Stern rule. He didn't. Too many players were coming directly to the NBA from high school, and too many of them were failing. That was the problem. You look at somebody like LeBron, and everyone says, this guy's a star, best player in the league. Well, all right, look at Sebastian Telfair, who came out of Brooklyn. Yeah, well, people in New York know him because he comes out of Brooklyn. He's supposedly the best point guard who ever came out of Brooklyn, and he's been with something like 7 teams in 10 years, and he's never made an impact in the NBA. Yeah. And he was supposed to be this legendary New York player, and that's what they want to avoid. I mean, let's face it. Telfair has actually made a decent living in the NBA, but has he had any kind of a significant NBA career? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Let's quickly talk, for those who don't know, Tim used to cover college hockey up in Albany, and Tim actually started the first national...
Not the first, but the best. It wasn't the first, but it was the best.
He started the best well-known, how's that? Yes. College hockey poll while he was up at Detroit Records. So he does follow hockey in the draft. Quickly, let's go through the NHL draft. The Islanders had the 19th pick. It took someone, is it Keeper or Kepler?
Keeper Bellows.
Bellows.
Who is a sniper. A sniper in maybe in the Mike Bossy mold, and I don't want to put too much in the kid because that's
just like Mike Bossy.
That's a big ask, but this kid is a goal scorer, and his father was Brian Bellows, who, if anybody actually follows the NHL, will know Brian Bellows because he was a top pick, obviously many years ago. I want to say by the Minnesota North Stars. I think he was the first pick overall. I didn't get a chance to research that, but this is his son, Austin. Kiefer. Austin Matthews was the number 1 pick. But Kiefer Bellows is a winger on his way to Boston University. So he's a young kid, and he led the United States or U.S. Hockey's national team development program, the under-18 team, with 50 goals in 62 games. And also had 31 assists, so he had 81 points in 62 games. So he's a leading goal scorer on the team, and he's the second leading scorer. So, and that's an elite program.
He's going to Boston University.
Yeah.
So the NHL draft works differently. These guys get picked in college still, or
they can pick
even before that.
They can pick them before they go to college, and most of the time, what happens is a player will go to college instead of signing with the team, and the team controls their rights. So
for how long?
Until they graduate college, or until the team decides what to do. I mean,
that's a pretty, that's a bad thing for the player. Let's say they want to join the team.
There are ways out of it, but they involve different ideas. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But the team owns the player's rights, and it comes down to when is the player ready to turn pro. I mean, it could be after freshman year, it could be after senior year. So it's good for the team, obviously, and it's probably good for the player too, because the player is able to keep in touch with the NHL team, and the NHL team will tell them.
And they're allowed to have contact.
There's contact. Yeah. I mean, they know what the expectations are.
Are they allowed to have an agent during this time?
No.
I know. Okay, so Austin Matthews was
the number 1 pick.
Number 1 pick picked by the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's interesting that the NHL and the NBA had their draft literally within a couple of days.
Yeah, that's I don't know why the NHL does that, because there's so much hype surrounding the NBA draft,
right? And
then the NHL draft just kind of slips in there, and it's not really there's nowhere near the hype, because obviously people in this country hardly know who these players are.
And even if they were American players, which
I mean, Austin Matthews is an American player. The significance of him being the number 1 overall pick is that he was born and raised in Arizona.
Right.
Now, but he was playing for a club team in Switzerland last season. So, obviously this kid is a very talented player to go with number 1 overall. But, I challenge you to walk around in Midtown Manhattan and ask 100 people who Austin Matthews is, and if one of them knew, I'd be surprised. So that's the issue that you're dealing with here.
Right.
Matthews was actually the first American-born player to pick number 1 overall since the Chicago Blackhawks took Patrick Kane in 2007. Okay. And Patrick Kane, as I'm sure you heard the other day, was named the NHL's MVP this season.
Yeah, you think they would have a separate week? Separate just keep the media.
Make it this week, as opposed to the NBA just had their draft, and the day after we're going to have ours. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
But also when you announce your awards this late,
same thing.
Why doesn't this get announced right? Either during the NHL Finals or right after. Why wait this long? Anyway, Patrick Kane was named Art Ross Trophy winner, MVP for the NHL. Braden Holtby, the Capitals won the
Vezina Trophy.
Vezina Trophy.
Yes.
Best goalie, and Drew Doughty of the Kings won the Norris Trophy as the Blues' best defenseman. So, a little late. The season ended a month ago. Or seemingly a month ago.
A couple weeks ago.
Seemingly a month ago, but to me, you put it out. You want people to know. You just don't want to drag it forever. I mean, they're not waiting.
They have their award ceremony, and it's a big night, and you know it's around with the draft, so everything is done during that ceremony. Maybe that's why they don't want to wait, but
well, they also, if they're going to do it during the draft, it means that all the teams are there. They can all go there without paying for a second trip, I guess.
I don't know.
Anyway, we're going to take a break right now. You're listening to From the Pressbox right here on 90.3 FM WHPC. I'm Rob Leonard. He is Tim Leonard. Tim, you're on Twitter. What's your account?
That would be at Real Tim Leonard.
1899, the Nassau County Bar Association has been helping both the public and lawyers who work here. We have grown to become the largest suburban bar association in the country. Today we offer many free services.